Talking about the year 2021, every member of our team will bear witness that we began the year in a very unique way with a very unique activity.
2021 reminds me of the beginning of this whole vision. 2021 brings a whole new set of projects and programs that keeps me marveling at when and how we got here. 7 years ago, when my husband shared the vision of SDLA with me, it was so overwhelming that I couldn't take it. I couldn't catch up with the speed with which he narrated where the project could lead, even when he hadn't fixed it all together.
I am Ima Asonye.
Activity. The Conference of Indigenous Hands and Voices of African Identity, IHAVIC 2021, was the first ever conference of indigenous signed and spoken languages of Africa. It was a virtual conference, but it was unique in its way because of the discussions that we had in the conference, the uniqueness of its attendance and audience. We had people from across the globe, deaf and hearing, coming to discuss the need for the promotion of the indigenous signed and spoken languages across our communities, our linguistic communities.
Working in such a high pressure role as conference moderator, my main concern was with avoiding technical difficulties on the day. So at a time when the whole world was still getting used to holding events virtually, sorting out the logistics of the conference took quite a few weeks of deliberation and trial runs beforehand. So we took into account the fact that stable internet and network connection was not a luxury held by everybody, and with attendees tuning in from all over the world, we had to make sure that our method of delivery took this into account. So using pre-recorded videos actually helped to make the audio and visual aspects of the conference run a lot smoother, and over the course of the 2 days, connectivity and technical issues were actually quite limited, which was really good, and most people were able to engage with the conference without much interference.
Of Indigenous Hands and Voices of African Identity, IHAVIC, brought a unique conference experience to a lot of us, from the planning to the execution.
Where we had presenters from all over the world presenting their research work on Indigenous African Sign Languages and Indigenous African Spoken Languages.
It was a huge success.
Languages. It was a wonderful experience.
And it was awesome to see the kind of discussions that were featured in that conference.
Because everyone played the role they were given.
Experience, and we really learned a lot from different languages across the globe who met online to share with us their experience, share with us the knowledge they've gathered from the different research works that they've done.
For my department, which is a very essential department in SDLE, we were given the responsibility to provide sign language interpretation services from the beginning of the conference to the end of the conference, and which we did effectively. We had other sign language interpreters from US, UK, Ghana that translated that conference into the language the deaf people in their community understood more.
The conference came with some kind of apprehension for the members that worked in the conference. Are like, whoa, are we going to be able to do this? I can remember when we were having the technical meetings, looking at how we were able to capture the conference that would take a huge amount of signing from different geographical locations, and it's virtual. It was something that gave us some, thoughts. I can't forget the contributions of all the people that really participated in making that conference to be what it is. I can't also thank enough the collaboration that Africana Studies of the University of New Mexico offered us, the collaboration of Nigerian Languages Project, and the collaboration of National Institute for Nigerian Languages, NINLAN, ABA. These people played very strong roles. The chairman of the conference organizing committee, Professor Enabase Urua, they did awesome work. Simi was wonderful in the moderation of the conference, even though she hadn't done anything like that before. Simi is our organizing secretary. It was a unique experience for her, being the central moderator of the Conference of Indigenous Hands and Voices of African Identity.
In my experience, and based off of the reviews from the team and our partners and of course the attendees, the conference was a huge success. It was a very unique and enjoyable experience. All of the participants were very engaged and contributed a lot of ideas and research and personal experiences to the discussions, which helped make my role a lot easier as well. The first conference was a huge learning experience for the SDLE team, and we managed to identify the strengths of delivering a conference virtually, as well as areas that we may need to refine for next time. It was my first time acting as a moderator for a conference, but the team worked very closely together to deliver the project, and we all supported each other in our respective roles. So overall, I had a great experience, and I really look forward to the next time.
These all brought a huge, colorful meeting, people of different orientation and different studies together to make the conference what it was.
Documenting indigenous languages, building a world where the deaf have a right to life, right to learn, empowering their youth. Save the deaf and endangered language for promoting deaf literacy, early access to sign language. This is SDLE.
Just like we've been doing prior to the year 2021, Much of our activities in Esdali Indigenous Hands in the year 2021 bordered on how to continue to sustain the discussion about the promotion, the need for the promotion of indigenous sign languages across the world. We tried to make this happen through all of our activities and all of our projects. You know, part of the activities that we observe every year is the Triple Action Project, TAP, which we launched in the year 2017, and which is also centered on sustaining the discussion about the promotion of indigenous sign languages, especially beginning from Africa. So later in the year, we had our TAP, and since the COVID time, we've been having our TAP at the central virtual point. So we still had the TAP virtual, and then we had Rebecca, one of our vibrant team members, organize Triple Action Project in her local community with the deaf community that is there. And then
last year, SDLE organized a one-day seminar at School for Children with Special Needs in Lari, Lagos State, to highlight how each of us, deaf and other sign language users, can work together to promote the recognition of our indigenous Nigerian sign language. It was a program I organized and anchored. It was a unique experience for me organizing a program of such magnitude and uniqueness.
And the discussion centered on how to see sign language right as a fundamental right, just like the WFD, sees it. But much more than that, we looked at how much of the African countries, deaf communities that are national deaf communities, how much of those have been able to project their sign language system to a national level. Even those that are said to have national sign languages, how many of those sign languages are really indigenous or have the much indigenous piece? How many of those sign languages are not really the sign language piece that is describable as a dialect of American Sign Language?
The theme for last year International Day of Sign Language was "We Signed for a Human Right." Well, it's important to mention here that the World Federation of the Deaf has continued to encourage the national deaf bodies to develop a sign language of their locality, the indigenous sign language, to a national and standardized status. But it's a pity that we do not have recognized sign language of our own here in Nigeria, because the foreign sign language has dominated our own indigenous sign language, and deaf people themselves seem to be carried away by the influence of the foreign sign language in the country.
So we looked at all of those in TAP 2021, and it made it unique.
The purpose of our seminar was to encourage the promotion and the documentation of the indigenous Nigerian sign language in our deaf communities. It was also a good time to highlight the needs for promoting our indigenous Nigerian sign language.
Physically, she had discussions going on in the school where the teachers and the students participated about what really is indigenous sign language and why do we need to promote indigenous sign language, especially in the 21st century when people think that everything has to be in line with technological advancement, including sign language. Forget about the history, let's make do with what we have right now. But in SDLE it is completely a different discussion altogether, sustaining the discussion about the need to promote indigenous sign languages. It was at the center of our activities in 2021.
The outcome of the program was positive. We had about 50 people in attendance, and those who indicated interest to get involved in the promotion of our indigenous sign languages in Nigeria. I'm so glad for being part of this great project, Esdali.
So, at the forefront of our advocacy, while we were carrying along and sustaining the discussion about the needed promotion of indigenous sign languages across the world, we were also championing the project of advocating for deaf human rights across the world, but especially in Africa. So our BBS is a project Beauty Beyond Speech that is being led by our wonderful Uche. And so BBS project is centered on in the advocates in the world to launch a campaign against all manner of sexual and domestic abuse of deaf girls and women. So last year, 2021, provided us with a different perspective to present our project BBS. And coming from 2020, we had this small grant that was meant to go to help the deaf community to stay active during the COVID time. Remember, 2020 was a peak of the pandemic impact on people's lives. So lots of mental health issues were being reported. So we had to engage the deaf women and girls. So we called upon those who had unique survival story from sexual abuse and domestic abuse. So we had these 5 young women who applied, and at the end of the day, they were trained, they were screened, and they started. 4 of them started their journey as interns of Esdali in the project BBS, and so they were selected to be BBS ambassadors. Unfortunately, anyway, 2 of them dropped, but 2 of them made it to the end. So throughout last year, our BBS ambassadors, Esther and Tonobari, they were at the field and doing the program, carrying out different advocacies in the different deaf schools and talking to deaf girls and teaching them, giving out some gifts. They were wonderful. Okay, and so I know that part of what they learned in the program was how to not only organize a program, but also at the end of the day present a report of the program they had. So they were made to give weekly verbal or oral reports, and then monthly reports about how they progressed in their intervention. And ultimately, every program that they had, every outreach, they would also submit reports to the department and to our head of projects, Oni. So in the advocacy aspect of our activities, we did not really lag behind. And BBS, which is a frontal project for our organization right now, is not doing badly, and I really appreciate Uche for the effort she's putting in that. So while that was going on, and while we were coming from the Conference of Indigenous Hands and Indigenous Voices of African Identity, we launched the Sign Up group, which of course has started working since 2020. And by the time we got into 2021, they had a unique project to work on. So we had started collecting data remotely from the different deaf communities in Nigeria through those indigenous or native deaf signers. And they were awesome in doing this. It wasn't very easy because, everything remote, man. Yeah. So in 2021, we came up with a unique project for this team, and we selected by volunteering those who were willing to work on the project of My Hero Is You. And
No active volunteer member in Exile will forget Project My Hero Is You so easily.
My Hero Is You book is a book centered on children being heroes to fight COVID-19 pandemic.
about January, February 2021, we had given out the My Hero Is You text to the team that volunteered to work on the My Hero Is You project. And so they had begun their research individually, and they knew they were to be recorded sometime, in the year when the project was going to happen.
It is true that my husband had to travel to document this project. Home feels empty, cold, and boring when he's not there.
Around April, May, June, it was becoming clear how we were going to record the My Hero Is You project. My Hero Is You project, or project My Hero Is You as we know it in Ezele, is a project to translate the text My Hero Is You into Indigenous Sign Language, which is the first of its kind. And the text My Hero Is You is a book, is a story written for children and children literacy about COVID-19 and how to fight COVID-19 and be a hero, and also lead your community to knowing how to fight COVID-19. You know that as of 2020, the vaccinations were not yet available, so people relied much more on wearing of masks and keeping distance and making sure you wash your hand and all of those. So those were the experiences we came up with in 2021 when we now started preparing to work on the project My Hero Is You. So So our team was wonderful, and at the end of the day, in July, August, we had the documentation of Project My Hero Is You. And I know, just like Festus and Ifeanyi would testify, and all other people that worked on the project, the sign language interpreter led by Blessing, our sign language interpreting head, and Precious and Rebecca, who also was part of the project. Every one of these can testify how much of a unique experience that the project presented. Having our signing team, the 5-member signing team, Lavina, Joshua, who we call Governor, and then Ifeanyi and Festus and Morris. These guys came from across Nigeria representing the different deaf communities, and they had done their researches, came with different signing systems, and they came up together to give us, the My Hero Is You project. One thing that stands out to me was the time that Lavina found out that there were similarities in the signing style of the different deaf persons who came from different signing orientations outside of the conventional school signs. These people went to research on their indigenous signing systems and they came back. So when she found out that there were similarities in the signing styles. She felt that the other deaf persons were copying her. But anyway, when she like complained, why are you guys copying me? So we're able to resolve that by saying, hey, we do not believe it is an issue of a matter of copying. We rather are seeing and learning the similarities that exist in the different signing conventions in the different indigenous Nigerian deaf communities. So it was so fascinating. And so we didn't plan it, but when we got there, by the time we were rounding off the project, we the idea came that it's not about translating this by signing word for word the script. We can also act it out. So the deaf signers themselves brought the idea, and with our camera director, our media director, one of the best in the whole world, Val. He is so awesome. So the idea came up and they started practicing how to play My Hero Is You as a play as it is on the book. This was what we did towards the last days of the project, and it panned out to be great. Okay, so if you watched our TAP 2021, you will witness that we launched and reviewed that video. What we really played in that TAP program was just some aspect of the played My Hero Is You translation. We have not reviewed the translated aspect of it that is not played. Of course, that is going to be part of our sign language app that is in the making. So by the time we were recording the My Hero Is You translation, we already had come to the conclusion that we are going to be producing an app for the indigenous sign languages, and all of the documentations that we've been collecting for the past several years. And it was during the trip for the project My Hero Is You that we had our team member who went away for a while. We had him come back, Godwin, and then with a very special and unique expertise in app development. And I was excited to have Godwin back. And much of the problem of looking for those who were going to help us in getting the app developed, it became very much lessened. And it wasn't long the work began. So in 2021 we had started working on the app from the back end, from the very start. With the return of Godwin to the team, it brought a huge relief. I had been looking for students from the university here, and we couldn't pay students, okay, because we've not had grants or investors. We've not had fundings that are specifically meant for the app development. So it was difficult to get students to work on the app because they needed to be paid, and we didn't have the financial strength to pay. I want to appreciate my friends Carmen, who works in the University of New Mexico, and my friend Susie. All of these people were, part of thinking and, deliberating and brainstorming on how to go forward. And thanks to my friend and brother Emeka Ofo, who also, came around buying into the idea, supporting financially and otherwise. So that made the work a bit, I would say less cumbersome, even though it still has a lot of technical aspects to it.
My name is Festus, signed F on shoulder and elbow. My experience with S. Delhi as it relates with my hero is you is that indeed I have actually learned so many things. I have learned that it is crucial, very important for us to accept who we really are. It is important for us to adopt our own indigenous sign languages. We were indeed a very big, beautiful team. We worked together to achieve a common goal. At first, we encountered some difficulties. We tried our best because we have not really been used to our own indigenous languages. So that posed some difficulties. But we thank God that we are able to achieve success effortlessly. Indigenous sign languages, as it is very, very important language, being that it is our first language as deaf persons. Every deaf child must have passed through this language when one becomes deaf, especially one that doesn't talk.
I'm gonna scale through the sky with you, my hero. Oh, I'm gonna scale through the sky with you, my hero. I'm gonna fly with wings like an eagle.
Hi, my name is Ifeanyi. I'd love to share my work experience with S Daily, X Daily Sign. When I sign S Daily, it helped me to be exposed to a lot of different opportunities. Until now, I start to sign S Daily Signs. I'm not disappointed with what I have learned from S Daily Signs. It is not for joke or entertainment, but with time, I came to know more about S Daily Signs and found many more ways to learn, and it helped me to upgrade my faith in S Daily. And I believe that my faith and confidence in my science, I'll use it. I'm no longer afraid or shy. I used to be camera shy, but now I am bold. I used to be afraid, but now I am not anymore. I can face the camera and boldly without any problem. S Daily Signs have helped me to understand that formerly this was a sign language being used long time ago, before Andrew came to Nigeria with Andrew sign. How we have our own science that Ace Daily is bringing for us. It teach us to be bold and read many books about it. That American deaf people and our science different. Ace Daily Science bring and use to instruct us.
I want to talk about Nelson.
My name is Igele Nelson Moses.
Nelson is a deaf boy that we met in 2016 in the School for the Deaf, Kuje, when we saw the building that he designed, and we were wowed. Like, who did this? They said Nelson. I said, where is he? They say he's out of school. That the story was long about him and all of that. But eventually, we called for Nelson, and we really found such a young, handsome brain in him who needed help. He wanted to study architecture, but the school didn't give him the chance. So anyway, we started supporting Nelson. So 2021 was also when Nelson got admission into late 2020 and began, studying architecture at the Enugu State University of Science and Technology, ESUT, as an architecture student.
I am a 200 level student of Enugu State University of Science and Technology in Nigeria. I am studying architecture, which is financially demanding for hearing students, let alone a deaf student like me from a poor family background.
Getting into school for Nelson wasn't an easy thing. Much so that he needed a sign language interpreter. He was in an environment that was not familiar with admitting deaf students and all that. His sign language interpreter, Uzamaka, is a wonderful lady who is very experienced in sign language interpreting and deaf education. And I'm glad that we are working with her in getting Nelson settled in school, and that's a very, wonderful thing that she is doing there, and we're so very much grateful for her. Okay.
I am Didiugu Uzamaka, the pioneer sign language interpreter in Enugu State University of Science and Technology, Nigeria. I am privileged to be Nelson's personal sign language interpreter. I am thankful to Dr. Ace Daily team and Dr. Emma Asoye for supporting me financially and otherwise. I am very thankful for every support that I have received through the team. I will never forget when I received my admission in 2021. I had no idea how I will go to school and pay my school fees, even pocket money. Little did I know that I was going to have lots of support from Ace Daily team and their foreign supporters. My school fees, my transport fare, house rent, money for designs, for drawing, models, which are always used in the department, are always very expensive. They were taken care of by the team. Esdeli. I even got a new phone. A new computer, a new generator last year. I was so amazed. I truly thank. I am really grateful for what you have done for me, and I'll do my best to show the world that someone believed in me when I thought all hope was lost. I am grateful to Esdeli team. Thank you.
Talking about 2021 from the perspective of SLA Indigenous Hands Project, we cannot overemphasize the work that those at the forefront of the documentation of Indigenous Sign Language on our team are doing, and how they have been able to bring everything to the app development. Administratively, Onyi is doing great in making sure that the team is functioning very well, and the rest of the admin team, the board members, and all of those that are really from the background working to ensure that projects SLA project Indigenous Hands is really going on and is taking a huge shape. So we are so grateful for the projects that we were able to achieve in 2021, and we are also grateful for where we are at every piece of our project, especially the Indigenous Hands sign up. And we are also at the same time with much expectation, with much anticipation. We are eager to see the outcome of the work we did in 2021, how it is going to materialize in the development of Indigenous Hands sign up. And that is why we can't wait. We can't wait for the launching of the Indigenous Hands. I wouldn't also forget to mention Josephine, the role she played during the tap, how she composed the anthem that we used. So she's working on different other songs for the project. Also the background music playing in this video.
My name is Josephine, and I joined Esdeli sometimes around 2016 because I was interested in being part of the community that advocates Indigenous Sign Language. And this led me to Esdeli. I was just going through the internet and boom, there was Esdeli. So I was interested in becoming one of the people that advocate Indigenous Sign Language in the deaf community as well as in the hearing community. And Esdeli does that. And it's such a great privilege, a great honor, a great pleasure to be part of this community. I happen to have recorded some songs which have been used in some of these programs, and it gives me great pleasure doing that. Gives me joy doing that. And
I want to say that the role everybody is currently playing and has been playing is that has brought us to where we are today is so huge, and we cannot overemphasize on how much we are very grateful for each one of you. We are treading on a very unique and possibly novel ground, and we are learning from what other people are doing, but applying those to our unique project, the project of the development and promotion and preservation of Indigenous sign languages of different deaf communities. Talking about the app, we're excited that we're going to be launching very soon in 2022. And we know that there's no other better time to have launched the app or to launch the app, but within the decade, the International Decade of Indigenous Languages that is being championed by UNESCO. It is such an exciting thing for us that we saw ourselves in the midst of the huge awareness and campaign happening internationally or globally for the indigenous languages. We are so excited that we found ourselves at the center of the discussion of indigenous sign languages. Why so many other organizations who are activists in this area of intervention are talking about indigenous spoken languages? Esdeli Indigenous Hands are taking to the forefront the discussion about indigenous signed languages, which of course so many people have not really understood why we're doing what we're doing. But I know it's going to be much clearer by the time these things start playing out. So we are so grateful that we found ourselves at this center of this discussion. I want to thank my wife and the co-founder of Esdeli, Ezinne Ima Asonye, for the role she plays so much from the background, the support, and helping to make sure that admin team is functioning well. The larger Esdeli team and the team Niger Sign Up, the team My Hero Is You, you guys are all so awesome. Okay, so I want to appreciate you all, and wanted to use this opportunity to tell you that there's more to come. Yes, watch out for the Indigenous Hands sign up.
Bridging the gap between the deaf and hearing, documenting indigenous languages, building a world where the deaf have a right to life, right to learn, empowering their future. Save the deaf and endangered language. We're promoting deaf literacy.